Welcome to Mixing with Mike, and here's another mixing tip on a very common question that I get. Do I put my effects processing on inserts or sends? Now, I can break this down in a very simple way. Essentially, when you get down to your plugins or your processing, you can break it down into three basic categories. What you primarily have are direct processing effects, and that would be compression, equalization, gating, expansion, things along that nature. And then you have harmonic distortion type of effects, and these could be effects pedals, reamping of instruments, tape emulation plugins, distortion plugins, things of that nature. And then the third category would be delay-based effects. And in the delay-based effects category or time-based effects category, what you have are delays and reverbs and those types of processes. Now, when you go about the process of working with these different types of plugins, what you have to think about is how vital it is to the sound. So for example, if I have a vocal, I'm going to apply the equalization directly to the vocal. It makes no sense for me to feed it off into a separate plugin or through a send to get the equalization because I'll still have the dry unprocessed signal. Same with compression. The one exception to that would be using the compression as an effect, where maybe you want the compressor or the vocal to feed into a sidechain compressor that is very, very, very heavily compressed, and then you can mix it in with the original signal. And if you apply a little bit of equalization in there, you can kind of filter off and really apply the compression just in the area where you want it to be. I have another video tip that talks specifically about that, about how you get presence in a vocal without getting sibilance. So you can look back at the videos prior to this one and find that one. There are also now harmonic distortion effects. So maybe the vocal needs to have, you want the sound of the vocal, the bass sound of the vocal to be distorted, in which case applying a distortion plugin of some kind would be helpful. Or maybe you wanted to add a little bit of warmth and richness, and so you put a little analog tape emulation plugin on the vocal, okay? And that affects the original sound. Now, what happens if you want to put delays or chorus effects or things like that? Most of the time, this is best done through sends, because when you feed a signal through a send, what ends up happening is that it allows you to maintain the processing for the dry vocal and keep it very isolated or separated from the actual delay processing. So for example, if I have a delay processor here, I could use the wet-dry control if I placed it on the processor here, but then if I wanted to go about distorting this or taking the output of this delay and feeding it into the reverb or into some other effect, then I don't have the ability to do that. Or what's going to happen is the dry signal is going to go along with it. So it limits my flexibility in terms of what I can do with the delays, where I place the delays. If I want the delays to be happening all the time, I can just leave the send at its full level or at the level that I find it. Or I can automate it so that it does delay throws, and therefore it would need to be isolated. This is better than trying to automate a mix wet-dry control or doing something along those lines with a level control of the plugin and trying to do that all within the same channel strip. It doesn't save you any processing power. It actually frees you up to make your processing more full with most flexibility, and that's really the key. So think of it this way. If the processing that you're doing is very unique to the actual instrument or track itself, then you may want to leave it right on there. So things like compression and equalization are usually more permanent things that you want to apply to the direct signal. Harmonic distortion can kind of go either way. So you may want to sidechain the harmonic distortion so you can blend it in with a dry signal if you want that control, or you can apply it directly as a plugin onto the track. You could always bypass it if you wanted, say, a distortion effect to only happen on the vocal in the bridge section of a song. Then you could automate the bypass and only turn it on for that one section of the song. And then delay and time-based effects are primarily done through sends. And you can also feed into sidechain harmonic distortion processing like heavy sidechain compression or parallel compression, not sidechain compression, or distortion effects and things like that through a secondary channel where you can feed it through a send or actually duplicate the track and mix it in. Either way, the way that you organize the tracks, always think about the amount of flexibility that you have, and this will give you the best results and allow you to change things quickly in case you decide to take a different direction with the mix. Okay, so there you have it. There's a Mixing with Mike tip on effects processing and deciding whether to use them on inserts or sends. And you can join the live Mixing with Mike classes every Wednesday at 7 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. If you sign up at mpginsider.com, then you can have your songs actually analyzed, critiqued, or mixed online. And the live classes, they're 2-hour live classes, and I take a different song every week and go through the process of showing you how to mix. I critique mixes. I show people what they've done, what things they could do better, things that they've done wrong, or a different way of looking at what they do. And this is all with the Mixing with Mike classes every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Go to mpginsider.com for more details.